I finally got my code for Kiro.
Okay.
I don't know how long it's been since they announced Kiro.
This is Amazon's IDE?
Yeah, the new
Okay.
IDE from Amazon. I ran into some problems while I was playing with it the first time through, so we're gonna try to give it another go and
All right.
see if
And you
it's
get a
a
friction log, I assume? Yeah, you get some problems to tell us about?
yeah, we probably don't have time to go into all of it, so it might maybe another
That
one.
many? Okay.
And who knows, maybe we'll run into this again. We're starting from scratch here, but I'm thinking maybe I just gave it too much. I tried to give it too much, although I feel
Okay.
like I've done these same types of projects with others like Claude Code and even Open Code, and they've handled it just fine. One of
Right.
the things that's unique to Kiro is its approach to the whole thing. Really, you can still do the vibe coding thing where you just work with an agent and chat back and forth, maybe think a little bit through, and then have it code for you. But really, what its main angle is here that separates it from the others is the idea of spec-driven development. Are you familiar with that
Okay.
term?
Maybe.
I think we've actually talked about it previously in other episodes very early on, but we weren't really calling it that. It was more of there's the
Right.
requirement stock or the was it project requirement stock, I think was what we were originally referring
Yeah,
to very early
PRDs. I
on.
think we talked about a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've done spec-driven development, but I feel like it was like a long time ago in university where I had to write pseudocode and things like that before even starting a project. And legitimately, I'm sorry, but I've not done this for most of my career.
It's really just thinking through what you want to happen first before you
Okay.
stick the LLM onto whatever and just have it code. In that model, you create, and then as the human in the loop, we come in and check the work and be like, yeah, this looks good, or maybe make a few changes here and let's iterate on it. In this approach, it's a little bit more the other direction where we're going to think it
Okay.
through and it's going to do it for you, but it's going to create user stories and different ways of how the app is supposedly going to be used. So that is distinct from the others. Maybe it speaks to their target audience is really more like product people who are already thinking in that type of language.
Right. I
But it
definitely
is
have a hard time with user stories. I don't know about you, but I have as a DevOps engineer, et cetera, those sort of things.
I
Okay.
think it is helpful to put yourself in the position of a potential user and think through different use cases.
Right.
But the whole as a user, I'd like to do these different things, I think sometimes can lead people astray. But that's a debate for another conversation. But Kiro, what I thought we'd do is let's just give it an app from scratch because I think that's the only
Hmm.
way to really demonstrate the spec-driven element. If I was to go in and clone a repository, we were thinking about doing that ahead of time. I've got this Core Web Vitals one that I just whipped up earlier this week, and I was like, let's just clone this because I can just grab that out of my repo, come over here,
Hmm.
hit clone, and let's just see what it does from there. But then I got to thinking, what separates this IDE from others is that spec-driven thing, which I think is best demonstrated from scratch. And they
Gotcha.
also have this connect option here, which seems to be allows you to connect through SSH, which I think
Right. To
all
maybe a
of them
project on another
have.
server.
Yeah, all of them apparently. You helped me think about all the different ones out there. They have this feature, but they don't
Right.
necessarily put it up front like this
Yeah,
one did.
it's normally hidden bottom left. There's another icon down there, and maybe that's for this, but bottom left, typically that little, it almost looks like an RSS feed button. I
Uh
found out
huh.
about it because I clicked it because I thought maybe it is RSS, but it's
Oh
definitely
yeah.
not NVS Code or Cursor or Windsurf. It's more like that remote SSH editing that Emacs would have or Vim would have, something similar to that. So you're opening up a folder on a different server. So maybe if your code is through a bastion on some other host, you would go through the Bastion SSH and grab the code there and then work on it. I think it's probably pretty popular in very secure environments. But for example, it's something that we used to do at Samsung. We would, in order to work on code, we'd have to go through a jump host and et cetera, et cetera. Just
Hmm.
certain code, but in some cases, that's what we had to do.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know if you saw me there. I went ahead and just created a folder in
Hmm.
my usual dev folder because to get started here, I had to open a project or basically open something.
Right,
And I don't really have, this is a new project for me. So I don't have an existing
right.
place for my code. Unless I'm missing something, that seems like an unnecessary extra step for me. I feel like I should have just been able to start a new project and then we'll figure out later where it's going to go.
Yeah, the two commands are what? Create folder and then maybe git init if it needs git. Maybe that's the issue, is that it doesn't run the git init.
Yeah, not real clear to me, but just as a
Hmm.
sort of thing that stood out. And then I did try to port over, or I guess bring over a lot of my plugins and things from VS
Hmm.
Code, which I'm assuming some of these errors that may be coming up are related to that. Anything jump out to you first, Ryan,
It,
that's different from
listen, it looks like VS Code, so I'm assuming it's a fork.
it is? Yeah, it is a fork
Okay,
of
okay.
VS Code. And you are right. Yeah, it looks very similar in a lot of ways. Although this panel over here on the
That's
left,
definitely different. Yeah.
yeah, that's so agent hooks I have not gone into, but essentially, let's say as we're building the code, I want some documentation to be updated automatically, or maybe I'm creating a
Oh,
log
yeah, I
of
do this all the
things.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we've
yeah.
been doing this manually for a while now, but well, I say manually, we're doing this in other ways, but now we can put in
Right.
these agent hooks where anytime I do make code changes, maybe I'm making changes to an API, a hook gets fired off to then go update the
Cool.
docs with whatever happened. So you can take care of some stuff that way, seems pretty nice. But beyond that, over here on the right hand side, we've got the vibe and the spec. And everybody's very familiar with vibe coding at this point, probably done it at some point. And like I mentioned, we can just come right in here and start. I could do one of those perfect prompt things that I've talked about in the past, where I've asked some other LLM to write me the perfect prompt, dump it in here. But like I said, the main differentiator, I think, of Kiro is over here on the right with the spec aspect, where we're going to plan a lot of it in advance and think it through before we write a single line of code, which I don't know. It's definitely a different approach. I don't think I'm going to sit here and argue which is the better way, but I do think that there might be some operational advantages to doing it this way, maybe in terms of cost, save yourself a little bit on the upfront.
Right.
I don't know. I've been really thinking through, like, why would I go this route as opposed to a different route that I'm used to? And again, that's probably a deeper philosophical conversation.
Yeah, I think, at least with agent hooks, having played around with Aider, root code, and some of these ones that are made for like long running tasks, or maybe they're made for like slow running LMs or LLMs. It seems like this kind of approach, I've been using the test driven development one, but it feels like this kind of approach is better for setting your expectations. And then essentially it almost feels like a Cambrian explosion or maybe some quantum thing there. Just throw spaghetti at the wall until it comes back with the answer. And it's an indeterminate amount of time, but it's going to satisfy these requirements and come back. So to me, it looks good. But also I'm noticing like the model you're using is Sonnet 4. Is that all you've got available to you? It's a good model, don't get me wrong, but
it is all that's available to me today.
Okay,
right now, I say today because just yesterday when I was playing with this, I was pretty certain that there was 3.7 or one of the other Sonnet models available as well, but
interesting.
Something's not there.
I say this because it feels to me, at least in my experience, that reasoning models work pretty well with the spec approach or the PRD approach is maybe what I'm thinking about. And that I didn't have a lot of luck in models that didn't do that. And the reasoning would actually help me fix the architecture or rethink my spec. But anyway, neither here nor there. I'm sure it works perfectly fine. Sonnet 4, as we know, is a good model.
Oh, totally. It's a great model. So I've put in here just a very simple, please build me a web to-do app. Also, I wanted to point out, I've got autopilot enabled. And let's just see what we got going for us. So, you know what? I don't think it did this for me on my PC when I opened this up. But this is nice. Showing
so it's already changed. Yeah.
While it's creating the requirements doc, popping this thing up here in the center to just educate me a little bit on how this all works. I'm going to close some of these things here just so you can create some space back. Oh, I guess I could just do that too. Okay, so it's finished its first step here. And let me scroll back.
Okay, that first part I realize it's not necessary, but I do feel like for an enterprise tool, this is actually pretty key. And this tool definitely does have an enterprise feel to it. So this is a good thing, basically, in my mind. I think this is actually pretty cool to let you know that, hey, your results may vary. You might want to look at this. Also look at our policy. This is pretty sweet.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that in other ones as well.
Me either, yeah.
Okay, so then once it gave us that little update, it then created the requirements doc. And we can see over here on the left what we have. It's got an introduction, brief introduction about that, and then requirements. Here's our user stories that I was mentioning. As a user, I want to create new tasks. And at least on the one I did yesterday, there was, I think, 3 different requirements that it came up with. Okay, this one's got even more.
4, yeah, 5.
6.
Oh, wow. This is pretty good, actually.
Okay. So as a user, I want a clean, intuitive, use the application. Okay. Yeah. So pretty standard stuff, way above and beyond what I would do if I was writing a requirements doc. Let's just
Same.
be honest.
It's about to say the same thing.
Yeah.
The other is, I wonder if we can bet on what this would look like if it actually made it. Do you think it's going to be the blue and purple gradient like everything else?
Oh, that's a good point.
There was one more thing that I found out using GPT-5 that doesn't apply to Sonnet 4, but those uppercase things, uppercase words, sorry, apparently are actually counterproductive in different models. And in particular, GPT-5, when you use the uppercase, the guidance for devs is to make everything lowercase or with a capital letter, because quote unquote forcing the model to do things will steer it in the wrong direction, which I thought were interesting. But I haven't had that issue with Sonnet 4, so it's maybe you can fix your model. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. That's good to know. I'm going to assume we're happy with our requirements doc here, so I'm not going to make any changes, but we could come in here and tweak this by hand if we'd like. Moving on to the next step here, we're going to move to the design phase. And you can actually, I don't know if you noticed up here in this kind of the top center of the screen here, it's got the phases that we're going through. And it gets a little busy, I think, for my eyes up in here to know what it's trying to tell me. But at the same time,
it's tabs and tabs.
Yeah, it's different. We can also expand this and try to follow along, but I've found it to be not that useful. I'd rather just wait till it's done.
Fair enough.
See what's going on.
Wow, it's really going, eh? And remind me, is Sonnet 4, I think, is available through Bedrock now, right? Where it wasn't before?
It was the last time I looked, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And again, neither here nor there. I just assumed that this used Nova for some reason, or Amazon Q Developer. I guess I had that stuck in my head.
Huh. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it is a little bit confusing that Sonnet 4 is, in this one anyway, is the only version. I expected, I don't know, a few Amazon models, but maybe eventually.
Or Bedrock or what have you, right?
Yeah. But here we're in the design doc. This is what was created next in our design phase. And this is where it starts to spell out what the stack is. We're going to be using vanilla JavaScript, it looks like. Again, I can make changes if I'm not happy with any of this, how it's scaffolded out of all of it. Again, I have no reason to make any changes here. So we're going to assume I'm happy. We're going to move on to the implementation phase of this.
Sorry, I missed that part. So the buttons actually changed as you're going through. It walks you through these steps. Gotcha. Like
over here on the right,
that button had changed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. It allows you to view over here on the left. And then I think it's a button to move on to the next step. Now, I want to say in this tasks markdown file is where things went off the rails for me yesterday.
Okay.
And it's because you'll see here in a moment that it's almost like a Jupyter notebook in that it becomes an interactive file where over here. So it's trying to finalize the task list. Let's go ahead and do that. And I'm going to wait till it's done. But essentially you can fire off every one of these tasks simply by clicking on it. And that wasn't,
you can fire off multiple at the same time?
I haven't tried that, but
okay, that's not great.
Yeah, because it was already struggling and I didn't really want to try to cause more problems. But I just found it, that's different as well from any others, is that you go in and say, here, do this, then do this, but it's all done by simply just clicking on start task. But before I do that, you can see over here on the right, it was 3 different files that were changed: tasks, designs, and requirements. I can revert any of those as I want, but otherwise it's done. And now I'll come over here, and this is where it took me a minute because I was like, now what do I do? I come over here and I click on start task, and then it begins going through each of my tasks. And I think depending on what it is you're building, it can breeze through a lot of this stuff pretty quickly, but some of the stuff I was asking it to do yesterday needed more feedback from me, or it needed okay to run a command. And so that's where I was saying, I think maybe I just gave it something, needed too much hand holding.
Fair enough.
But maybe it'll make a little bit more progress on this one.
Now, we talked about this a little bit in the preamble, but was it Astro by chance that you were using?
It was, yeah. I was just I thought that would be a pretty simple, straightforward thing. Build me an Astro site.
I always think the same, just because I guess Lovable and Bolt and et cetera do it so well that I assume that most of these apps can, but I also have issues, at least with Astro V5 and some of these models. So that might not have been you.
Yeah. So I don't know if you caught that, but the first task is now complete. So we can move on to the next task.
And it's fairly fast. It seems like this reduced scope is helping. Oh, interesting. There's a lot of tasks. Who knew?
So 15 tasks. So the math work does not really work out for us to go through every one of those in the amount of time
Right,
we wanted to
right.
do for this video. So I think maybe that's a good place for me to at least, I don't know, just start to wrap this up, because I feel like with enough time, we're going to get there. I'm going to get the app. I'm going to get the
Yeah.
to-do app, but I am positive I already would have had it and I'd have been testing it out in Claude code for sure. This isn't really a
In
Claude code
Lovable, you
thing.
would have had it in 2 minutes, right?
Yeah.
It probably would have
But even
worked.
in
And then you
Cursor,
connect Supabase.
yeah,
Right.
which is probably a closer one to this. I think I would have already
Right.
had a working version, but that's going in the opposite direction where I'm just YOLOing right in and I'm saying, here's what I want to
Right.
build it for me, and then let's discuss afterwards. Whereas this is taking more of a, let's think it through and design it all out and talk about
Right.
it first, which again, maybe that's fine by you, but
Yeah.
it's just something to think about. That's different.
It's definitely a different approach. It feels like this approach is more similar to the Amazon, or maybe it's the AWS approach of like how they build software. And I don't know if that's the goal, is to get everyone used to like the requirement stock, the design, the task list, what have you. Because I think both of us are using like todo.md, or Cursor even has its own little to-do built in, but we're probably already using task lists. So the main thing for me that's different is coming at this from, and I never have a design.md doc, but we'll cover that in a second. But coming at this from the requirements aspect, which I think the PRD is close to, but it's not the same as the way we're doing this. And you're not vibe coding the app. It's almost like you're vibe coding the features, if that makes sense, or you're just re-rolling the features instead of re-rolling the whole app. To feel might be a better use of time, but there definitely is more work upfront as a result.
Yeah, just definitely a different approach. I'll keep trying to play around with it, but otherwise, thanks for letting me show that to you, Ryan.
Absolutely. That was really cool.
Yeah, and we'll see you on the next one.
All right. Bye-bye. Thanks.